Bukayo Saka, what is going on with him at the moment? Clearly a world-class player over the last few years, extremely talented, but he has not been performing to his level this season. I think it's important to break it down into four probable reasons, I'd say, as to what is happening with his performances this season, discuss them in detail, find out really what is happening with Bukayo Saka. This is after he was ineffective against Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League, probably his worst performance in about 3 years, and after his goals and assists have really taken a downturn overall. It is clear to see that this season, Bukayo Saka has had a poor season in terms of goals and assists and output, an area which usually, when fully fit, he shines in. Personally, I believe there are 4 different reasons as to what has caused this down season for Bukayo Saka. Injuries. Bukayo Saka has not had a proper sustained injury in his whole career until last season when he did his hamstring that required surgery. This is a adjustment phase for a professional footballer, especially if they've never had a injury before in their career, because they then have to get used to building up their confidence in their body that they didn't have prior. Not only that, Bukayo Saka is a very explosive player who uses the ball in his body a lot to shield and keep the ball. And I think he might lack a bit of confidence in his body and be sort of safeguarding himself from getting injuries. Individual errors. Flash back to Burnley away. Saka was through twice. I remember this because I was at the game. And he just didn't have his clinicality that he usually does. He actually hit it straight at Dubravka on both occasions, missing those 2 chances. That is a sample size of a few other chances he's had throughout the season, whereby he hasn't been as ruthless or clinical or had the good decision making that makes him stand out as a player. In my opinion, Saka's best attribute is the fact that his decision making is 10 out of 10. He doesn't necessarily stand out to be blistering in terms of pace. He doesn't necessarily stand out to be majorly strong. I mean, I think he is stronger than people think, but his main attribute is his decision making. I think he's one of the best in the world at that aspect of the game. Now, his game intelligence and decision making this season hasn't been to the same level it has in previous years. Another reason is definitely partnerships. Saka, through his Arsenal career, has had so many good partnerships between Ødegaard and Ben White. Since Timber's come into right back, which obviously was last season due to White's injury, Saka has struggled a little bit because he's no longer playing with someone who's natural as an overlapping fullback. He's playing with someone who likes to invert, and he doesn't necessarily get the support. Not only that, he doesn't have the supply lines at the moment and this season for the majority of it that Ødegaard provides. Getting the ball in that half space, playing it straight out to Saka, keeping the ball quickly rotating to Saka constantly throughout the game. This season, he's had Eze or whoever you want in that right half space. He's played there at times. And the consistency of him getting the ball quickly has massively slowed. Another aspect which I think has been undermined in terms of the partnerships is Thomas Partey. Now, obviously, inside of football, it's important to note, Partey had some quality between the line passes that were played with pace to lead the team forward and break the lines to Saka. Zubimendi's a bit more of a cautious passer, so he likes to go sideways or backwards and play the passes a bit slower, a bit more less risky. So Saka is not getting the ball as much as he used to in the previous seasons, which I think has led to when he does get the ball and it's played at a slower pace, the other team has then set or has the 3 players that are marking him in position. There's less gaps for Saka to exploit and the attack as a whole, which leads to less fluidity in the open play overall. Another factor is the tactical rigidity of the team. Something that I've seen quite a few seasons, and I put it on screen now, is that the tactical shape for Arsenal across the front line, a lot of the times this season, has been the fullbacks in the interior on the edge of the box, with the wingers on the wide angles, and then the striker in the middle. And then to complete the box, like just behind that, is Zubimendi and Rice. That rigidity in the attack and sort of lack of flow is detrimental in 2 ways. It means that Timber's getting in the positions you ideally want Saka in because you can exploit that little half space. But also, it means that because we're taking so long to get there, and you've got a player, I guess Timber's trying to act as a screen there to bounce the ball off of 1-2s. If the ball doesn't come into him or he lacks control, which he can do because ultimately he's a fullback playing there, it will break the actual play down. What you ideally want in Saka's best time, when going back to the partnerships, it used to be Ødegaard would be where Timber's positioned now, Saka would be here, like just to the right of him, and then Ben White would be at the back. But what would then happen for the relationship is Ben White would go round the outside, it would be played to Saka, Saka would play in White, Saka would then move into the half space Ødegaard was, Ødegaard would usually drop back a little bit, and the ball would then be played into Saka to complete the final action. And I think that the rigidity of having the fullbacks in these half spaces, I don't understand it, I don't like it. It breaks down so many attacks because Timber just is excellent defensively, but he's not an attacking player whatsoever. And it doesn't really fit Saka because Saka is not a touchline winger. He never has been and he never will be. And I don't know if it's whether Arteta wants him there or if it's on Saka to get the onus to then put himself more in the central positions. But it doesn't seemingly be working. And I think the idea of it from Arteta is that when a game state is dropped back and the team is camped in their own half, he puts Hincapi or Timber, whichever fullback, in that position because then they're more likely to win that duel versus the fullback to get the knockdowns to the wide players. But what it actually comes to in the game is that they act as screens, but the ball never really comes to them or doesn't stick to them, so it just bounces back and there's no fluidity. So important for me is that the fullbacks don't stop doing that. Just stop doing it. Get Timber back. If you play him if he's inverting a bit deeper and put like Eze in that position. There are ways around it, but it just, I mean, we need Ødegaard back. But the setup this season of how we're trying to use our fullbacks, to me, has been an issue all season. It doesn't seemingly be working. All of this leads to is slower build-up, meaning Saka is usually playing against set defences where they've got 3v1 or 2v1 on him consistently. There's lack of movement through the attacking phase with lack of overlaps or runners, and that means that the play stagnated and it's harder to do the individual actions. I think it is important that we fix this now and very soon because we need to platform Saka to get the goals and assists when we're needing him, because ultimately the games that are coming up now, if we get to the Champions League semi-final or quarter-final, whatever, you need your bigger players to step up. And the only guaranteed world-class attacker we have, if we platform him, is Bukayo Saka. The final point I want to make is Saka has been quite unlucky. If you look at any of the underlying stats, he does compare to all the best right-wingers in the world still. The only one that really consistently beats him is Lamine Yamal, and there's no shame in that. So he has been unbelievable statistically this season, and goals and assists haven't necessarily come, and that might turn around eventually. But we can help him get the numbers that maybe his performances in terms of overall over the course of the season have shown that they should be getting. I think it's important to platform him, but yeah, let's just quickly beforehand touch on the Everton game at the weekend. Arsenal obviously need to win. For me, must win. Obviously, we need to keep this title charge up. I actually would drop Bukayo Saka in this game just because Madueke played very well in the Champions League. And it's important to give Saka a rest because if he has got an injury concern, you don't want to overuse him or make it harder for him going forwards. So that is my thoughts on the Bukayo Saka situation. I think people are overplaying a little bit just how bad he's been this season because I don't think he has been that bad. I just think compared to Bukayo Saka standards, he just hasn't been at his level, if that makes sense. And that's kind of natural after an injury. But hopefully he turns it around and Arsenal platform him to be able to allow him to do so because we certainly need him in this running. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.